today, but as Jamster announced, we did have some issues trying to connect Zoom, and our internet issues back in St. Kitts and Nevis. So this is me coming live from High Point, North Carolina. I'm very happy to be here and get back into the show. And Jamster, how have you been, man? It's been 2 months.
Being hot, bothered, hot. Did I say hot?
Did you say hot? You definitely said hot.
you know. So that's pretty much been my existence for the last few months. It's really
Okay,
hot. I
got you.
mean, and you know the records have been shattered yet again in 2023 for planetary heat records. You know,
Mm.
so man, and I'm sure it's
You
the
know,
same. I'm sure it's the same where you are.
It's already turning into winter here. We're getting
Mm-hmm.
some colder air, which is always welcome,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I'm happy that I'll be home soon again and I'll be out to the cold before it really gets bad. I want to start off just by a recap of the last few shows that we had. We talked about credit, we talked about money personality and setting financial goals. And today, as the first show back, I just wanted to be extremely general. And if we could have some calls, jumps, that would be really cool. Because the topic I'm going to lean really hard in today is that $1,000 injection that the government gave recently, just to make it more relevant. But I want to start with some financial news that might matter to us there in St. Kitts and Nevis. In finance and economic news here in the US, we've seen inflation making big movements in terms of affecting uh, pensions and income of the older population. As you know, since we're so big in cruise tourism, those are the people that tend to travel, right? So if we're seeing that the cost of living adjustments given by the Social Security scheme here in the United States isn't in par with inflation, that might mean people have to cut some luxury. So, what's the impact that might have on our cruise tourism? That's something to consider going forward. It's the same thing as the news headlines where cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, they're already increasing their prices, while at the same time we're seeing issues with people being able to afford basic necessities again in that population that travels. So what does that mean for our cruise tourism sector upcoming, right? Will we go back to pre-COVID numbers and hit over 1 million tourists, or we'll see a general pullback as well? Major moves in Asia, with China buying up as much gold as they could get their hand on, and how that affects gold prices. Right now, the spot price for gold, and that means the price per ounce of gold in the world markets is about 1,900 US dollars, which is roughly around 5,100 EC dollars. So if you're selling gold, even in our local market, be aware of the spot price, because that's something you don't want to be getting a lot less for your gold than you necessarily want to, right? You should be able to capitalize on that. And we just have to be mindful of how inflation again is going to affect us there in the region. US inflation has seen no signs of going lower. And by inflation, I mean change in prices. At the highest, it was almost 10%. And now we're somewhat settled around 7%. So that means in our local market, we should see at least around 7% because we're pegged to the US dollar. EC dollar, that is pegged to the US dollar. So it's fixed, it's a fixed trading currency. And honestly, we know if we look at prices in the supermarkets, it goes beyond that, right? But some major moves coming out in our local economy, though, right? So we're going to see the government has injected millions of dollars in September alone, August and September, with the $250 back to school voucher program and this brand new $1,000 injection that we got around independence that has hit some people and is about to hit for others, right? Now, what's that total injection? I'm not sure because of the specifications, but it's going to be, if you ever want to move the economy, it has to be from government, right? Government injection in the absence of private investment. So what's that going to mean? On a macro level, that's yet to be seen. We'll see that data, anything from government is lagged in the economy. Maybe at least 2 or 3 quarters. So by January, hopefully by April, we'll start to see the real effect of that. No, that's dependent on what people are going to do with that $1,000. Now, Jamster, I hope you've made plans for your $1,000 already.
I have
You have
saving.
saving it. Ah, okay,
Hmm.
cool. So and that's one option,
That
right?
that's
And
if I,
we
that's if I get any.
that's if you get, I hope you get it, man. Come on. I know I'm not getting it. I don't think I've contributed to Social Security in St. Kitts for, man, almost 20 years. So definitely people like myself and those out here in the diaspora, we shouldn't be looking for that, right? That should be something for the residents home, and they should benefit definitely from that. Also, too, something to be mindful of, we're seeing upward changes in oil prices. So that might mean higher prices at the pump coming. That's something for consumers in St. Kitts and Nevis to be mindful of, that we'll see increased prices at the pump,
Quick
possibly.
quick
Uh,
aside. I saw a
uh-huh.
story. There was a story on the WinFM news this morning about Trinidad. Apparently, the forex needs have gone up sharply post COVID compared to pre COVID. The government has had to they've had to add more money
The
to
foreign
the
reserve.
yeah, for people doing online shopping and so on. And I think that's it went up by, is it 3 or 5%? I'm gonna have to look for the story and maybe send it to you. But what do you think is going on there?
I mean, people are finding ways to lower cost, right? The easiest way is to come to the US market. Like I could tell you, I'm currently helping a friend of mine going through a construction project, and just looking at local prices versus prices that you could get here, even when you include shipping cost, it's astronomically different. I'm talking in sometimes 150% different, even if you were to ship stuff home. So I imagine it's the same in Trinidad, where people, consumers, the everyday man, are just trying to let their dollars go further because inflation means purchasing power is lower, right? I could buy less stuff this year versus last year. And as such, I need to find ways. So people are doing that mental math, and trying to figure out what's the best option for them overall. I think that's really part of it. And the government has to show up foreign reserves. And what's happening too, with a lot of these, once ago, everything was in US dollars, right? Everything in terms of trade. Now with BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and the ASEAN countries, about 11 there, they're taking a movement now when it comes to trade, that they want to trade in their own domestic currencies, and that's affecting the US dollar. BRICS is saying that they want to go back to the gold bullion, having currency showed up by gold. Well, what that means is that for the US dollar after World War II, it's just been fiat, right? It's just been paper. It's not really based on anything. But one of the things is that the US government is the largest owner of gold. I think I saw a report that they had over 8,000 tons of gold. 8,000 tons. Remember, I just said an ounce of gold, and a ton is what, 2,000 pounds? An ounce of gold trades for around $1,900. So if you want to go back to a gold standard, you could see that movement, but the effects on the US currency is going to be minimal, at least a lot more minimal than we thought. Brazil, Russia, China, they're trying to buy up as much gold as they can, with China leading that pack. So I'm not sure how much that has to do with that movement in
Oh
Trinidad. I would
yeah,
love to see that article
yeah.
though.
But
Yeah.
you just answered my next question because I always wondered if this move was gonna really affect. I didn't actually realize they had the largest gold reserves. So you think
Oh
that is
yeah.
why they went to fiat at one point because they figured, hey, we have all this gold. But
Well,
but let me
I
ask you,
think
do you know?
uh,
Are they still adding to their gold reserves? The
I think
U.S.
they are. I mean,
Okay.
it's the US government. They're not only adding to their gold reserves, they're also one of the biggest holders of cryptocurrency, while trying to find strategic ways to regulate the industry or the space. We've seen so much volatility in that space right now, but the US government, as well as a lot of the major financial firms like the JP Morgan, Chase, etc., they are going hard in buying up cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin. So we're seeing some movement there, and they're pricing. Obviously, the average person can't move the needle, but yeah, I would safely say the U.S. government still buys gold. I think what Fort Knox is where most of that is stashed. It's and then they're moving into digital space, which is a great signal as well for broad markets that crypto is here, right? We just need to figure out which are the legit cryptocurrencies and which are not so legit.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
So look,
yeah, go ahead.
ladies and gentlemen, we have about 30 minutes in this, and just to touch base on, all right, you have this $1,000. This is my topic for today, and you could please feel free to call in, and if you have your own opinion. But here's some suggestions. I'm gonna go through about 10 or so suggestions to what to do with this $1,000. This is my ideas. If somebody was to come and ask me, this is what I would suggest, right? And you don't have to listen to me, but it's just what I would do, right? um Let me just get my notes here. Now, the reality of the situation is the government didn't have to do it. So kudos to the federal cabinet that doing it. I've checked my politics at the door. Check your politics if you're going to engage. This is not political. I want this to speak towards the pockets of the individuals in society and give them real tangible options. So you have the ability now where you got an unexpected extra $1,000 in your pocket. For some people, that means a lot more than others. If you're in the upper echelon of earnings in the country, $1,000 doesn't really move the needle for you. But what about the middle? What about the lower income individuals? They're the ones that are going to benefit significantly. Um, so what I would suggest coming into this, we're going to just run through some. Now, for others, and this is just broad topics, you fit in where you could fit in. For $1,000, you could potentially start your investment, your emergency fund. And an emergency fund is something that we put aside just in case we have issues like what we had during COVID, where individuals lost their income and they had the inability to work for quite some time. Usually the recommendation is to have 3 to 6 months of savings set aside, right? Now, this $1,000 could basically start that process for individuals. It's not a lot. Is it a lot of money? No, not especially not relative to the prices we've seen in housing, the prices we've seen in food, even utilities. Now, again, a part of the reset program was a reset on electricity, a reset on water, different arrears with NHC. It's a whole comprehensive program that we really could capitalize on as a public. So start with an emergency fund. If you don't already have one, consider starting one and adding to your emergency savings. Now, financial experts like myself might suggest 3 to 6 months, but what we saw from COVID, we might need to push for 12 months of fixed expenses. That means trying to cover your rent, trying to cover your utilities, trying to provide your basic needs as it relates to food and sustaining yourself. That's one of the ways in which I would suggest to do that. To get started there. No, and that's $1,000. Now, if you're in a couple, you might have $2,000 if you live in the same household. Or if you have an adult child or children in your home, that's an additional 1,000 each, right? You could make decisions as a family about what you would do with that money, or you could have your children just work independently of you. But in some cases, the impact on a household could represent almost like an additional month's salary for one of the adults in the home, right? So that's a really big impact on a home in general. So what can you do with it? Usually when we get extra money, the first thing to do is spend it. No, that is an option. Go enjoy the money. Spend it. Spend it on fun. Spend it on things that bring you utility. Treat yourself. And sometimes it's okay to splurge on something you've been wanting to, like the latest gadget. The iPhone just came out, right? The iPhone 15 at a higher price point. And Apple was rumored to be banned in China. It seemed they've worked out their stuff with the Chinese government, which is great for investors because we saw a major pullback in Apple stock. I lost some money. It's been a rough investing week, to be honest. But no, they launched the iPhone 15 in China and they had lines upon lines upon lines as people flocked to the stores in China. So treat yourself. That might be one way. You might want that piece of clothing, or you might been have seeking out this experience that you've been craving for. Right. So it is a thing. It is an option. I always tell people, yeah, you could save, but there's such a thing as over saving. So if you don't find you need to save, if you don't find that you have other uses for that, you could treat yourself. And for some people, that's what they were going to do anyway, because they're more present focused, right? When we talked about money personality over the summer, we talked about we have some people that are present oriented, that are more focused on now, versus people that are more future oriented, that are willing to go through some of these other suggestions I'm going to make, because they could forego instant gratification a lot better than somebody that's a little bit more present
Yes.
focused.
I just sent you that story I was telling you about. With,
All right, cool.
yeah.
I'll be sure to take a look at that. Then the other option, right, is paying down debt. Paying down debt. That's an option. And okay, you might say, well, Doc, is $1,000. How much debt can I really pay down in reality? And I see your argument, but it is something, right? So, for example, if you have a loan that is at 18% and you put that $1,000 on the loan, that's $180 savings in interest payments, right? That matters over time. Is it great? Probably not, but it really does matter over time in terms of the impact that it could potentially have on you overall. Oh, so you could pay down that debt, and again, as a couple, the impact will be significant, especially the high interest debt that can be a significant burden on individuals and on households. Paying it down frees up future income, right? So I tell people all the time, paying debt is a form of savings. Paying debt is a form of savings, and I alluded to that when we did the show in person in summer. Because it frees up this future income, it reduces your financial stress. It is effectively a form of savings. So that would be one option, to go out and pay down that debt.
Doc.
Um,
Okay, it's 10:29, folks. In case you're just joining us, it's Money Matters with Dr. Terrance K. Martin Jr. and Money Matters is brought to you by First Federal. Doc, I just sent you a question that a caller sent. We're going to
okay.
take a quick break here from First Federal. We come back and maybe because let me tell you, give you a setup for that before we go to the break. We had First Caribbean here on, I think it was Friday, and they were
Mm-hmm.
laying out this campaign that they're doing to get people to switch their mortgage from one institution to the next. So I think that might provide some more context for probably why that my friend asked that question. So we're going to take a quick break here from First Federal, and we come
Okay.
back. Yeah, okay. So let's do this.
Found the sound 98.9
Are you getting a share of the profits from your bank? Kimberly is. Every year, First Federal returns a share of its profits to members like Kimberly. Nice, right? As a credit union, our members are the owners. They own the place. Kimberly reaps rewards every year because she purchased permanent shares and is well on her way to creating wealth. So, what are you waiting for? Be like Kimberly. Get your share of the profits. The more you purchase, the more you earn. At First Federal, we say yes to creating wealth.
Buildings damaged by an earthquake.
And we are back with Money Matters. Dr. Terrance K. Martin is our facilitator. It's 10:30, and Doc, go right ahead.
All right, well, thank you for that. I really want to thank the sponsors. I should have done that from the jump. Thank you for First Federal for coming on as a sponsor. So check First Federal out for all your financial needs. And, we're talking about what you would do with that $1,000 that the government just gave you via the Reset program for Independence 40. And it's a part of a comprehensive program. So we're just going down some stuff in terms of what you would do. We've touched on an emergency fund. We've touched on treating oneself, and we've touched on paying down debt. Now, the commercial that we just heard from First Federal, it was talking about growing wealth. So obviously the next suggestion naturally is invest that money. Buy those permanent shares in institutions like First Federal, credit unions, where you actually become a tangible owner of the entity. You participate in the profits of the company. You know, the other options that you have locally is the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange, where you could go and participate in the equity side of the market and benefit from significant dividends from especially the electric companies that are on that exchange, like St. Lucia Electric, Grenlec, National Bank or local National Bank tends to pay out decent dividends, even though they didn't pay, I think it was last year. Investing matters, right? If you could get a annual return, and that $1,000 could potentially double for you in 10 years just at an interest rate of 7%. Now, unfortunately, the thing is, and we will have a show on investing, and I want to get some local investors to come on the show, at least call in. And I want people to tell me what they do with their money, because I actually just had this conversation last week where a very astute, brilliant young man, he was like, yeah, I'm an investor. I invest with I have my shares in National, etc. And every year they give me a nice little check that I could buy gifts, right? And I was like, dude, then you're not investing, you're pulling money out of the market. So we'll definitely have a show on investing in the future. Another thing to do that you could potentially do with that $1,000, just to mix it up, you could donate to charity if you don't need it, if you don't feel that you could do it. What some people might do, especially if they're really religious, they will increase their tithes to the church. They might donate to that. They might donate to a worthwhile charity in the local market. It could be Children's Home, New Horizons Homes, just maybe Red Cross, whatever it is. You can make a donation. Sometimes spending money doesn't give us enough joy as putting smiles on people's faces and the impact that could have. So you could donate $1,000 to even animal shelters. I realize we have a lot of animal shelters now. If you really love pets, that might be something that might appeal to you, right? Another thing you could potentially do, education. I'm very pro education. I have to be as an academic. I encourage people all the time to go out and seek out new opportunities. There are a lot of free resources online on platforms like Coursera, like LinkedIn. They have LinkedIn Learning. They might have free courses. Google has a lot of free certifications, but if it's delivered via Coursera, you have about $40 charge a month. So it takes about 6 months. That's $240, which is about 700, and you could get a Google certificate and then compete for remote jobs. So that $1,000 could literally transform your life in terms of you could get one in like data analytics, or you could get one in marketing for those who promote themselves as social media marketers. You could set yourself up in that way that if you take half that money, or at least let's say 3/4 of that $1,000, you could go and in 6 months be Google certified in data analytics, or I think they have one now in data sciences and cybersecurity. There's one in finance that you could take for $750 EC. You could truly transform your life. And then the entry level salary in these spaces far surpass what some of the top earners in St. Kitts make, because being paid in US dollars, a lot of people are looking for remote workers. And even though there's some complications in tax structure between our countries in the United States versus St. Kitts Nevis, there are some people locally that work remotely for US companies. I know that for a fact. So that's one thing that people should potentially do. I highly recommend it. I've been pushing these Google certifications within my friend groups and my acquaintance groups just to get people retooled. Something we have to be really mindful of, because we already seen it transpire in America, is artificial intelligence and what that means for our jobs. AI, as it's called as an acronym, is transforming the way in which people work. Companies are already laying off staff that were tooled or skilled for old technology and bringing in people for new technology. So we have to be mindful of that where artificial intelligence is concerned, and put ourselves in a position. For me, that $1,000 will reap a much better investment than investing that $1,000 in the ECSE or any other financial institution, to be completely honest, because here you're going to get some skill sets that could set you apart from the rest. And I think it's a worthwhile investment, something I would significantly encourage people to do. Travel, travel. We now have that boat that goes to Statia, Sabre. I love to travel. God has blessed me with the ability. I think so far, Jams, I've been to like 54 countries, about to hit my 55th in a couple of weeks. And I can't underscore enough how important that is. Let me talk a little bit about travel, though, to put this on the mindset of the Ministry of Tourism. $900 to St. Kitts and Nevis in December is ridiculous. US dollars, that is, and it's $1,200 from a colleague of mine that is in Ohio. If I was still living in Utah, God knows it would have probably been $1,200 to $1,400. We were told that we'll be getting discounts on air travel with the introduction of JetBlue. It's not materializing. While at the same time, the same airlines that are charging us these monies, taking people, for example, I saw a flight Jamster to Kenya, East Africa, 20 plus hours of travel for the same price, right? And you actually get meals on those trips as opposed to a bag of peanuts and pretzels coming into St. Kitts. So, we have to really be mindful of that. This is just a broad, general observation, pushing that out to the ministry. If anybody could get that to them, you need to go check those airlines. Now, prices were significantly low for a while, I'll admit. I saw like $490 out to North Carolina at one point, but that came with 30 hours of travel each way. So that means overnighting in hotels, and a hotel in Miami close to the airport is damn near $200 each way. So that's a $400 on top of that 490. It makes a difference. That's another 900. However, back to it. Sorry, that was just my rant, because I'm coming home from my buddy's wedding, and I'm like, dude, I like you a lot, but that $900, I don't know if I like you that much. So that might be the reality that some people go down if they're trying to come back home for Carnival this year, Sugar Mass. So yeah, what you could do with that $1,000 that the government gave you, you could travel. Take a weekend, go to your sister island of Nevis, check out some of those amazing condos and villas. That could be good. Park Hyatt has a decent promotion going now. You might want to check out local hotels as well. You could go to Sabre, Statia, go and enjoy something, build up that part of your human capital that crave experiences, that crave cultural immersions and making lifelong memories. Those things truly matter overall. So I would suggest that some people could jump in and travel. Jams, do you like to travel?
I do.
You do? What's the best trip you've ever gone on, you would say?
I don't travel nearly as much as I would like to be honest. But
I understand.
I really like traveling around the North America, the US. I like that, the state to state, that type. That thing.
I just did that, man. I just drove from Utah to North Carolina about 2 weeks ago. Took me 36 hours, bro. 36 hours and a lot of back pains and foot cramps and tire blowouts, but I've done that, and I like to drive. One of the trips I would really love to do, my dissertation chair, he didn't show up for my graduation because every year he takes a trip from like Portland, Oregon, all the way down to California on the I-1. And he said it's some of the most beautiful sceneries that you could even imagine. So yeah, definitely traveling, even if you're in the US, you travel up here. I think now you could still get some decent flights via New York and JetBlue, not so much via American in Miami, but I would jump in and suggest that as a real option for this $1,000. If anybody wants to do that, travel, have that experience, try new things. Home improvements, you could benefit now from some renovations. The government, a part of the reset was that if you're doing renovations and repairs, you get reduction in VAT, custom surcharges, duty free, all these different things. So in a combined household where you have $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, you could make some changes. You could bring in some stuff. You could upgrade that bathroom. You could upgrade that kitchen. You could make tangible changes to your home that would somewhat positively affect the value of the home. And a show I want to do in the future, Jamster, I want to do a show on the real estate market in St. Kitts and Nevis, going through that right now. Some of the things I'm discovering is just mind-boggling, especially when it comes to the appraisal of property. It's just wow. That's all I could say. It is wow. Let me just answer that question that you sent. I just remember that. My apologies. Um, what should homeowners, since we're talking about home improvement, what should homeowners, when evaluating moving a mortgage from one institution to another? It depends, right? It's long-term effect. You never make a decision if the benefit of that decision does not outweigh the cost. Now, I know National Bank came out with a switch program of a low at 2.98% interest rate. That's a very enticing rate. The questions that I would tell consumers to go and ask is, especially if, let's say, you have like a 4% or 4.5 at one of the other local institutions on your mortgage, you have to ask National for how long? For how long? And I've been asking that question. I've told friends to ask that question. And up to now, we can't get a direct answer to that question, which gives me pause. Because if that's an introductory rate for 12%, then it goes up. Goes up to what? Is it going to go up to market? The reality is the market rate for interest rates really should be somewhere around 6 to 7%. That's really should be the market rates for mortgage, 6 to 7%. So, these rates and campaigns that are being pushed now by National, they're very enticing. They're like, wow, even myself, I'm like, man, shit, I should come build a house, right? I should try to get in on some of that action, right? Because here in the US, mortgage rates are 7% right now, 7 to 8% if you're lucky, right? And to get a lower rate than that, you have to literally buy that rate down, meaning put more money into the market, put more money into the loan, put more money into the transaction, trying to get seller credits to buy it down.
But
So
is that rate fixed or
it's a fixed rate. That's the thing, though. I don't. You see, the thing about the local rate, it's not fixed. It's variable, and that's what we need clarity on. When will these changes be made? How often will these changes be made? Because I'm telling you, to go from a 2.98% even to a 4% mortgage is going to significantly affect your monthly payment plus the accumulated interest over time,
I'm pretty
right?
sure. I'm pretty sure the CIBC people on the segment on last week said that the mortgage rate they were offering was going to be fixed. I think
So CIBC is joining the campaign now,
yes,
trying to compete
yeah,
against
yes,
nationals,
yes.
major role. Well,
They
that's
were
good.
on. They were on.
Competition is good for the consumer, right, Jamster? Let these banks fight it out for our business for once, right? We have the power as the consumer. And that's why I want our people back home to realize when you get this financial knowledge, there ain't nothing people could tell you, right? You go in with your data, you're empowered by knowing your numbers. They can't come pull a fast one on you. So if First Caribbean SABC is fixed, that's an amazing thing because National is not fixed. It's not a fixed rate. And it could adjust and then adjust to what? Will it adjust to global prices? Will it adjust to the real market price? Now, one banker or one person that worked in that credit department said to me that they've never observed increase in interest rates while working in that area. But it's really hard for me to believe that such a low rate is sustainable long term. So I would ask that question to the person that sent that question, talk to the banker. How long? How long will I have this 2.98%? Have them do what is called a break-even analysis on your refinance opportunity, because what you're doing is refinancing your loan. And there come a sweet spot. After about 12 years of a mortgage, you start to see a further reduction in principal as opposed to the majority of money going towards interest. So once you restart that, once you refinance, you're going to have a lot more money going back to the interest rate than the principal again. So we have to do a cost benefit analysis. You have to ask that bank, whoever you go with, CIBC, National, even First Federal, ask them to do break-even analysis on that refinancing opportunity for you. Now, the reality is what we saw as a result of COVID was a lot of people that overbuilt homes ended up having now to, they have their rental properties and they weren't filled. They were empty. So they now had to go back and find creative ways to cut costs. Now, I want people to push for a cash flow motive, right? Because our real estate market is such where we have no clear idea on proper pricing. Evaluations are based on very old data, not even from same locations, that we have to basically push for a cash flow initiative or cash flow perspective when we're thinking about real estate. And not to mention with the government coming out with their own housing scheme that will definitely negatively affect the rental market in St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of from the perspective of the producer, the homeowner, where we may have less likelihood of proper tenants because if basically government's going to flood the market with cheap housing. And if that's the case, I can't fault people for leaving these one bedroom's going for $1,800 a month. Yes, might include some furniture. It's not great furniture. And some bills, not electricity, versus a $500 a month mortgage, a $1,200 a month mortgage in a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom house. I mean, it makes absolute sense to think. So right now, if you are a homeowner with rental units, you need to be pushing cash flow. And so the cost benefit analysis, how much will I save? For how long? And then that savings, do not spend it. You either pay down that mortgage further aggressively.
Yeah.
And in a year, I think we should move towards bi-weekly payments, meaning 26 payments a year. Well, not bi-weekly, 26 payments a year, that pay cycle. So it ends up with us paying an extra month, and that's going to knock off like 5 years, 5 to 7 years, and hundreds and thousands of dollars in interest.
I just sent you the talking points from the CIBC thing last week. It would be nice to hear your brief assessment of some of those carrots that they're hanging in front of potential customers to get them to switch. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, they have some major reductions on the upfront, right? Like up to $1,000 off of the loan application fee, $500 off of, and that's US dollars off of home insurance, which is a big deal. That's definitely going to put more cash flow into the pocket. 250 US towards valuation report. I just paid $600 for a valuation report that was completely useless because the data is old and the process is just completely flawed. And I was amazed. I went back to the person that did this and I was like, look, I can't accept this. I need you to redo this. And he's yet to redo it. And I can't fault him because he has no data, right? If we want a robust housing market, inland revenue needs to give data about house sales and land sales. That's just the reality of it. That's what evaluations are based on. We can't appraise something. Every bank, every financial institution pushes for appraisals, but we have nothing to appraise on at all because the market is skewed and flawed. We have no data. So we're making people pay money on something that is not tangible at all. Okay, sorry, that's a rant.
No, good
but
point,
anyway,
good point.
They have a minimum loan here of like 70,000 US dollars over a 10-year period. That seems more like a renovation loan to me. It's coming with
That's
potentially.
US, huh?
Yeah, that's US dollars.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
that's not
you could
much,
be right.
man.
You could be
Listen,
right, yeah.
you can't even build a 1-bedroom house with that. And you can't do nothing with that money in this market. But it's something. This reads more like a home renovation loan to me, to be completely honest with you.
At least that's a
70,000.
minimum, you know.
Yeah,
Minimum,
it is a
yeah.
minimum. You're right, and a minimum loan period of 10 years. Homeowners benefit card. So they're even adding a credit card on top of that, it seems. Okay, I'll have to dig a little bit more into this and to do that. We could have one just a conversation just comparing mortgages in general, and just go from there just to see how they compare, right? If I could get the data, I've actually reached out to someone at National so I could get the data or the summaries of all their programs they've launched. Switch, Apex, Wow, at least 3 to 4 programs. And maybe that's something we could do, right?
And this one is called Get Cozy.
Get cozy, nice. They're getting creative. Look, I just like that they're competing for people's money and that we're not having to run down. I want our people to be buyers of financial products, not be sold financial products. If you're a buyer, you have control, and who has control has power. So that's one of the things that we want to be mindful of. But it's good. You have to compare. Like I'm advising the young woman that I'm assisting on her construction project, shop around, go to Bank of Nevis, go to First Federal, go to National. Let's look at what these things are. And I'm about to enter that space as well because I want to put something home. I want to build as well. But it's scary out there, man. The prices are so scary. It is insane. But I understand the difference. So just to jump back in, and if we have any more questions, Jam, so please send them. What else you could do with that $1,000? You could start a business, traveling all around SK. You see people on grills or selling food or selling drinks or something. You could start your own business venture. That $1,000 could be the seed capital that you want. A friend of mine just last night mentioned that she's about to start a bar, or she wants to get in a bar for Carnival. They rent out those bars or give permission, whatever. So no, if you're in a friend group, y'all could merge and put that money together and each, pay for that fee that would come with that and buy your initial set of drinks or try to get drinks on consignment from some of the wholesalers. That might be good. And you just go out and spend that money. And get that business, and you could really then take that $1,000 because starting a business is an investment. You could take that $1,000 and turn it into $5,000 or turn it into $10,000. In my younger life, Jamster, I used to be an event promoter. Before there was funds and cane juice, there was high mat promotions that I did all my stuff in Anguilla though. The St. Kitts market, it's always, hey, give me a free ticket there. Didn't really enjoy that market at all. So I did all my events in Anguilla, and I remember this was in like 2005. They had the popular swimsuit show. Don't know if they still do it, called Miss Venus.
How do you account for this smaller population and being more
Because they ain't enough to do. So when there's an event, they go.
Okay, fair enough. Same thing
That's
happens in
literal.
Nevis too, I think.
Yeah.
Because I always think
When,
Nevisians are more appreciative of events happening,
yes.
and they go out
But
and support.
in St. Kitts though, I think our entertainment industry, I mean, people like Fans, Terror, I can't study it, Shannon, all those who do these events now, they've really changed the landscape of it, right? Which part of one of the recommendations is enjoy and have experiences. Go to events and stuff that give you joy. That would be one of the ways in which you could spend that money as well. But now you're seeing prices like what, 250, 350. We couldn't get those prices when I was in this space 20 years ago. But I remember one night in Anguilla Jams, I made 10,000 US profit off of a party that cost me nothing.
Wow.
For me, that was just mind-blowing money back then, It's mind-blowing money today. But I go to like local events there, like Carnival, and I'm like, man, this is like hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit. Even looking at the Carnival bands that have damn near 500 plus people. And I am fascinated. I want to write a paper on the economics of Carnival mass bands because I am completely fascinated. So if there are any mass band leaders out there, I'm talking to you, Ozel, I'm talking to those who run Lux, who mind giving me some data. I would love to jump in on that type of research because I find that completely fascinating. Health and wellness, put some money into that. Join a gym, invest in your own self. They say health is wealth, and it's really true. I myself have spent the summer trying to work on my own health because you see now we have so many reports coming out now of an increase in cancers, and now they're trying to link it back to the COVID vaccines. It's a whole other conversation, but we really need to be a little bit more mindful. And with such a high food import bill, we've seen a dramatic increase in cancer and autoimmune diseases in our country as well and in our region. I think the Minister of Agriculture, they're trying to target a specific reduction in food imports as well. And arts and culture. That's the last one. We're running out of time, right? Go to that theater production, go to that show, have that experience is what I would suggest. These are some ways I would go out and spend that $1,000. If you guys want, as a news item, I could write this into an article format and we could have it published on WinFM's platform for wider distribution.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I think we're about 5
Okay.
minutes
You have
to
about
end
two.
our 3 minutes.
Yeah, maybe two. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. But no, I just wanted to say, look, it's great being back. We'll figure out a schedule that's sustainable. This is my busiest time of year as an academic. I should have been in Phoenix, Arizona right now for a conference. And then next week, I'm actually in Baltimore for a conference. So I have to check my schedule and get back to you, Jamster, about that flight. But hey, look, this is Money Matters with Dr. Terrance Martin, sponsored by First Federal Credit Union. Check them out. Go and ask for Marvelyn Emmanuel. She's a credit manager, an amazing person, very diligent. I've worked with her personally. And all the staff there at First Federal are absolutely great, excited to have them as a sponsor, and we hope to have them on the show in the future, and they could tell us a little bit more about their products. And hey, maybe Jamster, we could have the CIBC people and maybe national people. We could have a mortgage debate show. That would be exciting.
Yeah, that'd be good, actually.
Putting people together. But hey, look, it takes financial knowledge to know that you're making financial mistakes. And this is Dr. Terrance Martin for WinFM Money Matters. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, and we'll join you next week. Have a great day, great week.
Yes, sir. You too as well.
And of course, Money Matters is brought to you by First Federal.
Are you getting a share of the profits from your bank? Kimberly is. Every year, First Federal